Okay, I'll admit I messed up. I did not realize that episode 8 of House of the Dragon was the final of the season. I thought there was 2 more episodes, and I watched it, planned to make a video in a couple weeks, and to be quite honest, this review today was supposed to be for Borderlands, and then I realized my mistake, and I didn't really want to see Borderlands anyway, especially after those abysmal reviews came out, and I couldn't even find time to see it this weekend. Anyway, this video was supposed to be Borderlands. I don't know when or if I'll see that movie. It's been flexed. Now we're putting in House of Dragon since it just ended, and since it's so fresh, I just want to get the review over with. So, yeah, let's dive into House of Dragon Season 2. So look, I was a huge fan of Season 1 of House of the Dragon. I thought it was a fantastic return to form for the Game of Thrones universe. I love Game of Thrones, I really do. The first season up until the 6th season is incredible television. Honestly, if that show would have just been seasons 1 through 6 and ended after that, it would have gone down as probably the most complete and consistent and best television series ever made. The problem is, everyone knows what happened with season 7 and season 8. The final 2 seasons did not quite live up to the standard of what we knew from the past 6. The production wasn't as good, the characters weren't as complex, they constantly made decisions that were either made no sense or were just totally out of character for what we had seen in their past behavior. The writing wasn't as tightly knit, the stories were rushed. I mean, there's a ton of problems with those last 2 seasons, and I think that's evidence from the universally mixed reviews that they received from critics and audiences alike. That being said, I still love seasons 1 through 6, and I think they're amazing. And season 1 of House of the Dragon, I think, took what made those first 6 good and built upon that. And I think it utilized the complexity of those first 6 to really kick off a great prequel series. And I enjoyed that season immensely. I can't say the same with season 2. Now, I don't think it's terrible. It's not even bad. It's very good. I just don't think it's as good as the first season. There is a lot of pacing issues in season 2. The writing is good. The characters are very complex, which is kind of the standard for Game of Thrones. This universe has always thrived on producing these characters that are just very morally ambiguous and complex, and you kind of never really know what anyone's thinking or what their motives are or which way they're going to flip on a certain issue or battle. And that's what makes these characters in this universe and the stories that they tell so interesting. And we still have that here in season 2, but like I said, there are a lot of pacing issues, and it feels like a lot of filler episodes. This season very much feels like a build-up for something way bigger in season 3. And that's not a bad thing. It's just there isn't a lot of big events to fill the time in season 2. A lot of times through Game of Thrones, you get these slowly paced storylines, these methodically written complex character arcs, but in between those arcs there's usually like a big battle or some crazy significant fight scene or an unexpected death like the Red Wedding or things of that nature. You don't really get that this season. There is a lot of slow burn to this season, and like I said, it's not a bad thing. It's just this season felt like it was missing something that season 1 had. Now, that being said, there is a really fun dragon battle this season. I think episode 4 or 5, I can't remember. But it was great. I think it was one of the best executed dragon fights probably in this whole universe that we've gotten so far. And it leaves over a lot of interesting plot threads going forward. We have Aegon fly in on Sunfire, and everyone knows he's the acting king right now. Well, he is the king, not acting. He's the king. And there's a pretty prevalent narrative thread this season how Aemond is clearly jealous of Aegon and thinks he could do a better job at ruling. And those feelings of jealousy come into play during this dragon fight as they try to ambush Rhaenys on her dragon, and Aemond holds back so he can burn both dragons. And he believes he kills Aegon, I think, but we learn a few episodes later he survived. He doesn't really remember what happened, and Rhaenys dies. I don't know if I believe that she's dead. Yeah, she plunged from like 500 feet in the air or something. But it's kind of like that old Game of Thrones shtick that no one's ever really dead unless you see them die on screen. You don't really see. She falls to her death and then it kind of cuts away. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe she's dead. She probably is. Who knows? But that was really the big eventful battle sequence from this season. And like I said, it's not like the rest of the season is bad. It just feels like a lot of filler building up to something more. And there still are interesting narrative threads. So Matt Smith's Daemon spends a lot of time at Harrenhal. That's the goal right now. Both sides want to try to conquer Harrenhal. They think it'll be a big advantage to whichever side wins Harrenhal. And so he spends a lot of time there trying to rebuild the castle because it's in shambles, trying to create an army that's big enough to take on King's Landing. And his plot threads are interesting. You know, he has to go back and reflect on a lot of the demons of his past, stuff he's guilty about with his brother and things like that. And it comes into play that maybe he will end up trying to take the throne instead of continuing to ally with Queen Rhaenyra. And in the end, you see that he kneels to her. So they are going to unite as one. And that will be that. There's also an interesting plot thread where Queen Rhaenyra brings in all of the bastards from the Targaryen line. And I believe this is the first time this is ever done in Game of Thrones history, but she makes them dragon riders, which is unprecedented. And it's kind of a unique, interesting plot line to see that come about. So it's a very good season. The writing's still there, the acting phenomenal, the effects obviously great, the set designs, costume designs, everything's phenomenal. It just feels like this season took a step backward, and it's a very slow, nuanced story, which isn't terrible. I just don't think it lives up to the highs as season 1, but I still enjoyed it nonetheless. So I'm looking forward to season 3, and I'm hoping it'll be as epic as throwback Game of Thrones was. I'm currently doing a rewatch on Game of Thrones, by the way. I may make a video on that, I may not. But man, those last 2 seasons, just bad.